Chapter 2B. Sarah. My brother made fantastic progress in the past few weeks. It was quite remarkable, actually. He'd never seemed to give up. No matter how hard he wanted to try, he never gave up on me. And my father being gone was a perfect combination. Gave us time to keep him prepared and keep him happy. How I know so much about this and how I understand more about the subjects than I let on, it's quite remarkable, actually. The first time I got a subject sister was named Mabel. Mabel was a good person. She cared for me and I cared for her. But then one day she disappeared, and I knew something was wrong. When I asked Father about it, he dismissed the question and said that she was killed by hunters. A few hours later, I received another subject. I didn't buy it. I didn't care. Something wasn't right. I did digging and discovered a room. I came to call it the rebirthment chamber. My next brother was being created. And then I just stared at him. I didn't care who it was and I didn't care why. Subject 6 was a difficult one to try and befriend. Something about him just felt wrong to me. Anytime someone found out that I was in the rebirthment chamber, they would ask if it was okay. I would say yes. A few days later, I would kill them and drag their bodies into the woods surrounding the castle. Let the wolves have their way with the body. Subject 8, on the other hand, was different. He felt, for lack of a better word, alive. I'm not sure exactly what was the problem, but I could feel his heartbeat from time to time. Something I never felt with the others. Eventually, Father returned, and he entered the Great Hall in his own way, for lack of a better word. He jumped through the ceiling and landed directly on his throne, the Bloodstone throne. I resented it for everything it stood. 8 walked into the room, dressed in silver armor. It covered all the essentials. Shoulders, joints, chest, legs, covered everything. And what wasn't covered in silver steel was covered in a black leather for warmth. Eventually, my father stood up and acknowledged him. My father raised his left hand, and several soldiers came rushing in. There were maybe 11 at best. My brother ultimately was not ready to die. I guess him and Father shared that aspect. Come to think of it, they look an awful lot alike. I'm not sure why. Maybe it had something to do with the rebirthment process. But that didn't matter now. 8 immediately leapt into action, breaking the spearhead off of one of the soldiers' weapons, and then using it as a sword, jabbing it directly into the heart of the closest one to him. Next, he picked up a dagger that had fallen to the ground, and he had used it against another soldier by throwing it directly at his head. The next soldier came rushing up. 8 used his blade and stabbed him in the throat. Several soldiers began to loose arrows from balconies high above the ground, maybe 10 feet. 8 used a body to block most of the incoming arrows. Several arrows killed another soldier from stray shots. My brother immediately used a hammer, lifted up against one of the soldiers, and smashed his skull into the ground. 8 ran up against the wall. He did everything in his power to kill those soldiers. As he fell down, he brought his blade down on the neck of one of those soldiers, then grabbed the bow and jumped over the next soldier and then broke his neck. Then loosened 2 arrows on the opposite side of the arena where 2 other soldiers were firing arrows, killing both of them. He jumped down into the center of the room, and another soldier, a big soldier who was named the Hammer of Daylan, swung his mighty hammer because the name wasn't just for show. He swung it as hard as he could and knocked 8 back. 8 got back up immediately and swung his blade near the arm, but it did nothing. 8 jumped again and again and again and got hit again and again and again, ultimately deciding to switch up his tactics. Things were getting interesting now. My father was sitting on the edge of his seat, and so was I, but for the wrong reason. I was scared that 8 would not be performing to my father's standards, but this reassured me that he was. 8 swung his blade for one last time, near the head, cutting the head clean off. And then the soldier came crashing down onto the ground. 8 immediately jumped again, doing a flip and killing another soldier, then killed the next. He was done playing games. He kept killing over and over and over 20 soldiers in 15 minutes. Something that I hadn't seen before. I've seen death. This was a massacre. My brother then took a bow after all the soldiers were dead. After he did, my father held his hand out and welcomed him. Sat him right next to his side, his left side. Ultimately, it didn't matter anymore. 8 was given a goblet of blood. As he took a sip, he threw up all the blood, and a bit of his as well. It was horrifying. My heart stopped beating for a few minutes. Then my father picked him up. It was bizarre. My father said in his cold tone, "So, you can't drink blood, huh? No matter. Clean him up. Take him to get a bath. Clean him up. Dress his wounds." My brother left the room, along with most of the servants, to idolize this new warrior, for lack of a better word. I called him a weapon, because that's what he was. Father then said, "He'll be in your care for the next little while, since you seem to take a liking to him." My heart stopped beating. Where did I go wrong? I asked myself multiple times. How could I have gone wrong? 8 should have been safe. I should have been thorough. How did I mess up? These questions rushed through my head over and over again, with the fear that I had failed my brother. But he was safe. That's all I cared about. I didn't care about the stupid army. I didn't care about the stupid war. I didn't care about my father. I cared about my brother. That's what I cared about. And I will fight to the death to protect him.